Okay, I was nervous about how to go into this because we're talking about what could potentially be the biggest or second biggest movie of the year.
Easily.
I don't know, there's still that ongoing debate about is it going to be this or Star Wars. Nobody knows. I'm maybe betting on later in the year, but we won't. There's no point in figuring out until later.
Correct.
So this is definitely going to be one of the top two biggest movies of the year. Not to mention the last Hunger Games. That'll probably be not too far behind the two.
Spectre might not be small either. I think it's going to have a big release.
Yeah, internationally especially, it's going to...
Internationally may be what puts that in the actual category of challenging one of these two.
And Furious 7 already set the bar for this year.
Yeah, it did. It'll be number 4 by the time this weekend's over.
God, this year's going to be insane.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Number 4 overall.
Okay, so, let's see this. Yeah. The fastest movie ever to make it to $1 billion came out this year, and it's probably going to be 4th all year.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. So, so to begin with this, okay. Okay, I'm nervous. Talking about the movie this huge is nerve-wracking.
Whenever it goes back to the first ever one of these we did when we were talking about Iron Man 3.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Superhero movies always seem to be your kryptonite.
I don't know why.
I did not mean to do that.
I don't know why, considering I did Iron Man 3 with absolutely zero experience in doing this, so...
If I remember correctly, almost zero sleep, too.
And I didn't quit in shame. I've been doing this for 2 goddamn years now.
Yes, you have.
So, like to the day.
Very soon, yes.
So, yeah. Okay, let's just start with this. Clearly this was going to be a difficult task for Joss Whedon, because... he basically made the biggest superhero movie that has ever been. Like, I don't think more build-up has ever gone into a movie. Not just, like, fan build-up and, like, you know, talk, but I mean, like, you know, the movies built themselves into this universe that everybody in the movie industry is now trying to replicate. Miserably. They can't do it.
They don't have enough strong players in order to do so.
DC's gonna try their best, but good luck with that.
I think Suicide Squad has a better chance right now than Justice League does.
I don't know. We'll let DC do whatever the fuck they're doing and sort their shit out, because Marvel knows what they're doing. Marvel's got it going on right now.
Yeah, they do. This is the best purchase Disney's made since Pixar.
And the other thing about it was, not only did he have to top making the biggest superhero movie that's ever been made, but the fact is also looming over this series that obviously this is, you know, just me talking and a lot of other people talking, but there are people who will say, you know, no, not true, but it's generally, there is a general consensus that the Marvel movies have maintained a specific quality. Like that, like there isn't a terrible movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe yet.
There is not.
People have made claims for Iron Man 2 and Thor 2, which are not unfounded, but they're not. There's still a bar that needs to be reached when you're making a movie in this universe now, especially when you have Captain America movies that mirror the '70s. Thriller starring Robert Redford. There is a bar to be reached. And you've got things coming from all different sides, like Guardians of the Galaxy. And all of this building up to this great big thing that's going to happen, and then God knows where it goes now. Downey was talking the other day on Letterman about how, like, it seemed like every other movie that was coming out, Downey was saying was his last one. Like, Iron Man 3 was his last one, then this Avengers was his last one, and then that. And now he's, like, a major player in Captain America 3, obviously he has to be.
Yeah.
And he finally just said on Letterman, I'm probably just going to do these movies forever because I love them too much.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, they're going to keep coming. So, might as well go into the movie itself now. After... a lot you have to keep that in mind going into it. Or it's actually better to keep it out, but if you're going to go in to like criticize it or look at it from a critical perspective, you got to keep in mind how much is riding on this movie. Because for a while there, all the Marvel movies had to build up to this gigantic, magnificent thing that people had never seen before that became the first Avengers. And now you got to do that all over again. Because you've had all these sequels that have been building up for this big, gigantic sequel, and it's just going to keep building. But for now, we're still here in the middle. I assume Infinity War would be a proper stopping point, but...
I would say so, but...
I'm sure they're going to just keep on fucking... maybe they'll finish up with Infinity War, and then there'll be a reboot and everything. Whatever.
I hope not. No more reboots.
That's just what they do.
No more reboots.
Did you really think we were going to get another Batman movie so soon after Nolan's movies ended? A little bit, didn't you?
Honestly, like I said, with the casting, I'm a lot more excited about it, though.
Okay, so this movie begins, and we're off to a really good start. Because, well, for starters, we're introduced to Aaron Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen's characters, who were introduced in the post-credit scene, the first post-credit scene, the Winter Soldier, I think. And, of course, they are Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, I think is her name.
Yes.
It's really confusing to have Scarlet Witch and Scarlett Johansson in the same movie, and she's not playing the Scarlet character. But, you know, it's not that confusing. I just throwing that out there. And we also saw in that same scene that Baron von Strucker, I think is his name, has Loki's scepter as well. And all shit is going to break loose if the Avengers don't come in. So the opening scene is this gigantic action scene, and it's basically the Scorsese of superhero movie shots.
Yeah.
Because it's one, I think there was a similar scene in the first Avengers, but here we kick off with it, where we see every Avenger is introduced kicking somebody's ass, and then the camera just pans over to something. The action is kind of a chain reaction to introduce each character one at a time. And then they all converge into this one shot where they're all diving forward at the same time. That's how you had to open this fucking movie.
Yeah.
Good on you, Joss Whedon. If you were going to start this movie anyway, that was the way to do it. And it's a good 10 to 12 minute opening scene, like the scene where Loki gets out at the beginning of the first movie. This wasn't the first movie. It's going to be something that's said a lot, probably. But try to... Yeah, don't worry about it. Now, this basically, to keep from going into a whole big synopsis, there is a chain of events that leads to the possibilities that could come from this power have to be stopped before anything big happens. So Tony has this global peacekeeping initiative called Ultron that is basically his metaphor was like basically more or less an Iron Man suit for the world. After the events of the first movie, obviously. So that global peacekeeping initiative takes on a mind of its own and has the voice of James Spader. And I know, okay, I get that this is really, really overused now. This is getting to be like a huge, huge cliche, but yeah, if there's one problem with this movie, it's the very, very unoriginal setup of Ultron's big plan is to save humanity by ending it. That's been a thing for a while now. We'll talk about it this weekend later too.
Yeah.
So, and he takes the form of a giant 8-foot robot. And the Avengers the Avengers basically have to work together to stop him, because you have to keep if you're going to bring the Avengers all together, you have to have a gigantic threat that's not just elves or ice people or whatever I called out Thor twice. Yeah. Sam Rockwell with fake tan on his hands. You gotta have more. You gotta have more to call the Avengers, and then I love that opening scene when they're Strucker is informed that the Avengers are here, and he says the Avengers are here, and he says, "Well, can you hold them off?" And he's like, "Sir, they're the Avengers." Yeah, there was a lot of question about... A lot of people I guess, complained. I have no idea where this complaint is founded, but there have been complaints that the threats aren't big enough in these Marvel movies, especially, like, a lot of people thought Loki bringing in the alien army was not a big enough threat. I don't know how opening up the Earth and bringing in an alien army that wipes out New York is not a big enough threat, but now we have he's just one 8-foot robot, but he has the power to wipe out all of humanity. And he absolutely sees fit to that, and he's driven by the fact that he thinks he's doing the right thing. That's the issue. It's very interesting to watch Ultron as a character, just the way that he is, because when you obviously look at it as a whole, he's a very complex character, even if he doesn't seem like it. If anything, he is a complex character, but the issue is if you're looking at it from a distance, you could kind of see it as he's a very uneven character. When he wants to, when he's like naive and doesn't know what he's doing, and when he's like pure evil, kind of goes back and forth. But that's just like a character flaw within him, not necessarily in Whedon's building of him. Or I should probably throw this out there real quick. Not much of an actual comics person, especially in regards to this. So, what is, I'm going to assume, given how much faith people put in Whedon, the fact that Whedon is like the ultimate like nerd god, that there's not a lot of problems regarding, I don't know if accuracy is the word I'm looking for, but a faithfulness to the comic books. I'm going to assume there's none of that in here. If there isn't, or is, I can't really address it, so there. Now, I want to point out, while we're talking about how complex Ultron's character is, there apparently is a misconception here that I was unaware. I don't know if more people are aware of it now, but if you aren't, you need to be. When the idea came up and everything was presented and Spader was cast, it was under the impression that Ultron is this big 8-foot robot who is clearly a special effect, and James Spader is providing his voice. Well, I honestly had no idea until he's been doing the talk show circuit, obviously, this past week. James Spader is Ultron all the way through. It's a motion capture performance, and that is awesome. I had no idea. I thought he was just the voice, and if you go to IMDb, it just has him listed as the voice. But that is actually wrong, because it's him. The whole thing is him. The only difference is apparently he's wearing like something on his back to compensate for how tall he is, but it's still him the whole time. Like, apparently Elizabeth Olsen had a lot of trouble where she has to look up here because that's where his eyes are, but she kept looking at Spader, who's down here. And the whole thing, like when we first see Ultron in his robot form and he kind of comes stumbling out, which is really funny. He keeps bringing up the puppets on strings thing, because he kind of... This is one of two things. It's either blatantly obvious or I'm looking too much into it. One of the two. He actually walks when we first see him, because he's in the first body he takes is a busted ass robot. And when he comes out, it kind of looks like he is a puppet that's like had half of its strings cut off, and he's just moving really weirdly. And it's really creepy too. How they're having the big party and everybody's happy, and he just kind of comes casually wandering in like that, like a monster. It worked really well. But yeah, that's Spader doing all this shit in motion capture. And I really, really love that. And like I was saying, his character is very interesting, because despite the fact that he keeps going back and forth from misunderstood to totally evil, there's also he has a lot of personality and a lot of comedic moments, and it's really interesting. I love the fact that we were talking about the Marvel villains and how a lot of them aren't necessarily that great. Does anybody give a fuck about Ronan and Guardians of the Galaxy? What the fuck did he do? Yeah, our big villain we keep leading up to, Thanos, is just a big alien dude with Josh Brolin's voice sitting in the sky waiting for shit to happen. That's it. So, it's very interesting. We have Loki. Loki is a fantastic villain. I fucking love Loki, and Tom Hiddleston is great. You have to make up for his absence in this movie, obviously, because Ultron is our new villain. And yeah, so apart from Loki, Ultron is easily our best Marvel Cinematic Universe villain, and he has the most personality. Think about this. Ultron has the most personality of any Marvel Cinematic Universe villain apart from Loki, and he's a fucking robot. That takes skill. So the combination of Whedon and Spader, magic. Magic is happening with this character, and it's fantastic. And I love those little moments. He just has those little, like, just one little line delivery. Like, all he has to do is say, like, one word, and it sticks in your head. Like, I love the moment where he's inside the truck, and Captain America jumps onto it and starts to kind of attack him. And Captain America throws his shield at him. He's getting Captain America's shield thrown at him, and his response is, "Stop!" And another moment where he just says one word, and I just love it because it's so perfect, is he's talking to Andy Serkis's character, and he says an expression that he heard Tony Stark say, and Andy Serkis's character realizes this, and he kind of reacts to it, and Ultron's reaction to him is, "What?" He turned into Garth Algar for a second. Like, he says this big, expression about what the Earth is going to come to, and something really, philosophical. And then he gets a reaction, and his response is, "What?" I love that the character can just go to those different emotions like that. And yes, I can't. And sometimes he catches himself, like that moment where he's fighting somebody, and I think this is also the Andy Serkis scene where he hurts him, and then he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I'm sure that's gonna be okay." It's such an interesting character to watch with all these different personalities that he has in this one person. It's like he's got a disorder or something. And it's a really interesting thing, and I can't express enough how impressive it is that they get all this out of a character that's a fucking robot. Alan Tudyk and iRobot wasn't this emoting and had so many different layers. It's weird. I don't know if layers is the word you can use, because he's just kind of, because that's the way is, yeah, you get it. So yes, and it's another thing that Whedon does really well here is how he sets the stakes up, because like I was talking about, I don't understand how people think that the Avengers movies don't have big enough threats, because the great thing that happens here is in both movies the threats are really well established. It's just how cataclysmic they are. Because you have it's always Tony, of all people. Like, Tony's usually the one that, he's a genius and he can pretty much do anything and fix anything. So whatever it is not a problem. In both movies, he is brought to the brink where he kind of realizes that they might probably lose. There's a moment in the first one when he's talking to Loki, and Loki's talking about bringing the Earth down. And his response is, if we can't save the Earth, then we'll damn sure avenge it. So he's actually almost counting on the world to be ended by Loki. And then we have this second movie where we're talking about the stakes, and Tony actually says the words, "We're gonna lose. And there's nothing we can do about it." And we're talking about human extinction. Your stakes can't get any bigger. There is a reason that this is the story where the Avengers have to converge again. This is the reason why a lot of people's questions are, where are the other Avengers in the other movies? Because they don't really need each other in the other movies. They can be taken down by one superhero. When the Avengers come together, Joss Whedon makes sure that there is a fucking threat that needs all of them, and it's going to take all of them. And he manages to put it together in such a way to where even so, you would have thought the juice maybe would have run out with the first one, But in this one, he still manages to equal the balance of the way he uses the characters, and he actually had more of a task now because Hawkeye is actually more important. He kind of took the easy way out with Hawkeye in the first movie because Hawkeye was under Loki's control for like 2/3 of it and wasn't on their side. But here, he has to deal up everybody, and most of it works. There are some things. I think I've praised the movie enough that I can throw out some stuff that's... starting with... okay. There's one big one. I mean, it's not... I'm not about to list like a bunch of giant things that are wrong with the movie, but there's one thing here that kind of is not with it. Once again, though, like I said, even if it lines up with the comics, still... I have no idea if this is a comics thing or not, or if this is something that Whedon just built into the story. I don't know. But it really didn't work for me, and a big issue with this is that it's such a large, important factor of the movie, and the whole thing was just totally... I just wasn't on board with. That's this love story going on with Natasha and Bruce that seems to have come from out of nowhere. Now I get it. They're both wounded, but because Black Widow has her own story and Liv Tyler's off with Ty Burrell now, so I get it, and there is a connection between them obviously because Black Widow is the one that kind of calms him down and brings the Hulk back to Bruce. With, comforting him and caressing him and all that. And, I guess, surely there's going to be a connection there, like, obviously, Scarlett Johansson caressing you. You could literally say Scarlett Johansson can turn the Hulk back into Bruce Banner. That's the power Scarlett Johansson has. Not Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson herself. But this, I don't know, because there's not a whole lot of lead into it. And it was never... Obviously, the only other movie they've been in together is the first Avengers. You would think, if anybody, it would be Captain America because of their camaraderie in The Winter Soldier. But it's Bruce for some reason. It just seems... I don't know. Once again, that's the thing that makes me think maybe it's a comics thing. Because you just kind of have to... Like, if it is a comics thing, then Whedon pretty much said, well, this happened in the comics, so it has to start happening now. But then again, they abandoned the whole Pepper Potts and Happy Hogan thing. I know that was supposed to be a thing that's in the comics, but... I don't know. It just... Okay. And here's another problem that I have. And I'm not trying to do this as a... Oh, women don't... There's not enough great roles for women and stuff. We're not going to get into that whole thing. I'm just talking from the perspective of this character and how we know her from the other movies. There's one other little thing here I should probably mention. There was a clip that was released of Jurassic World, not that long ago, and, Joss Whedon caused a bit of a fuss by, blasting it on Twitter, and saying that, obviously I didn't watch the clip, but, apparently the clip from Jurassic World they showed, Joss Whedon was criticizing because there's a female character that's basically treated like, a female character doing female character stereotype things or whatever. And he was making a big fuss about it. So, it's a little bit odd to me that after that whole thing, we're taking Black Widow's character and basically turning her into, like, the wears her heart on her sleeve hopeless romantic of the Avengers, which is weird, because there's not... I don't know what all everybody knows going into this and what they don't, but it's worth mentioning that, there's something going on here that explains, the relationship between Black Widow and Hawkeye makes a lot more sense now, given a certain piece of information. And so there's that, and then we have here's the thing. The great thing about Black Widow's character was she was in Iron Man 2, and even though everybody had the reaction to her that you would have to her, nothing really became of it. And then she was in The Winter Soldier, and she was the partner of Captain America, and that was it. She did her thing. She did what she does, and the movie stayed that way. It was fine. And we've made it this far. Did you absolutely positively have to give your main female character a love story? After having made it this far without that bullshit. You almost started one with Tony, and then you didn't. That was great. He went with Pepper instead. And then you could have done that with Captain America. But you didn't, because that's just not what that was. It was great, and it moved on. But you have to know with fucking Bruce, it's like a cop-out storyline. It's like they didn't know what to do with her. And that is not the direction I would have gone to give Black Widow more of a story. Because that's just... And to top it all off, talking female character cliches, after everything we've seen Black Widow go through... In this movie, we see her, number one, fall in love and do that. And number two, she's the one that ends up getting taken and locked in a cell that they have to rescue. Which kind of seems exactly what Joss Whedon was going against when he was blasting the Jurassic World clip. Once again, I don't know the context of that Jurassic World clip, but still, that sounds like the direction he was going. And that's pretty much exactly the position the Black Widow is in now. I mean, she still gets to do her badass thing. She's still totally, her character. It's just, given the other... I mean, I know you've got to give her, like, a human side, but I think we had enough of that when we learned of, when we saw her vulnerability towards Hawkeye in the first movie. We don't need to continue to make Black Widow vulnerable just because she's a female character, It just seems... It seems totally unnecessary, and like I said, it seems like a cop-out storyline. Like, they just... Because obviously you have to give everybody their own thing. Like, you've got... Bruce is having his problems because he's getting real guilty about the damage he causes when he's the Hulk. And we have... Thor had Thor's problem with Scarlet Witch showed him something with Idris Elba, and now he's trying to figure out what that means. So he's got his own issue going on. And everybody's still got their own thing going on. And that... Throw Black Widow a love story, because she's a woman, it's easier that way. That wasn't working for me, clearly. But maybe it'll branch out into something with more meaning in the other movies, or something, I don't know. But that was just a plot point that I thought really brought the movie down, and the fact that there's so much emphasis on it makes it worse. So, not really my thing. And of course we have on top of there are returning characters like we have of course we have Stellan Skarsgård comes back for science because that's what he's good for. I got with the Scarlet Witch stuff where she brings out like their innermost fears and they have like flashes of like the worst things they can possibly imagine. So naturally, like I said, there's an Idris Elba scene when it happens to Thor, and there's a Haley Atwell scene when it happens to Captain America. Rhodes and what is Falcon's real name? Don Cheadle and Anthony Mackie are both in this movie.
Sam Wilson.
Yes, that's it. So. They have one scene, there's a big party, and then they may or may not be back later, much later, like, they could have been useful a lot earlier, but they gotta do it really, really late, but that's okay, I guess. You don't want to pack in too much, I guess. And they have to kind of explain some more missing characters, like, I don't know if this was, this just even more confuses the idea, but I don't know if this was Whedon kind of talking about the fact that they're kind of shunning the female characters. Because there's the moment where they're talking to Maria about... they're at the party and they're talking about the absence of Jane and oh my god, who's the other girl that's missing? Pepper. Jesus. Oh god. Sorry. This review's really long, and I'm losing my shit. The absence of Jane and Pepper, obviously. And Tony and Thor actually get into this battle about whose girl is more important. Like, Jane's about to win a Nobel Prize, but Pepper is, running Stark Industries. And Maria makes the comment of this whole team is full of testosterone because there's no women around, and something like that. Whatever. It's worth noting that Black Widow's working the bar in this scene, by the way. What the fuck are you doing to that character? I know. There's gonna be some comic geek in the comments that's all pissed off, like, but this is why that happens, and this is why that is. Black Widow is still a great character, fuck you. Whatever, you're talking to nobody. Anyway, on top of those, and of course we have Nick Fury, who apparently went and found a new eye patch. Because wasn't it like a big deal, like in one of the last scenes of the Winter Soldier, when S.H.I.E.L.D. collapsed, he like left his eye patch behind and burned the place down or whatever. Well, he's got an eye patch again, so he didn't like the sunglasses approach. I guess it got to be too, people thought he was blind and were treating him weirdly, so he just went back to the eye patches. So, yes, we have. Obviously, we have the new characters already mentioned. We have Aaron Johnson's character. We have Quicksilver, who is... obviously, there was a lot of talk about how they're going to handle Quicksilver because of Days of Future Past. And clearly, the Evan Peters' character and Aaron Johnson's character are the same character, but they are obviously in two different universes doing two totally different things. And as far as Disney and Fox are concerned, they are two totally different people on two totally different planets, and we should not talk about them in the same sentence. So talking about this one, it was going to be... They do the thing. Obviously, they don't try. There are a couple of moments where we do the thing where we see him at, like, with everything slowed down. They don't try anything as elaborate as the time in a bottle thing, which is good for them, because that would have trying to top the time in a bottle scene would not have been good for them. I know Marvel totally has their shit together here as far as the cinematic universe. And they have this thing about, not really fucking things up, especially when things are really high at stake here. If they had tried to top the time in a bottle scene, I think they would have lost. So it's a good thing they didn't go for that. But there are a couple of things that are really good payoff. One thing is, there's this great moment where he's doing his thing and everything's like bullets are flying around at a snail's pace and all that, and he's watching everything go by. And then Thor throws his hammer, and he sees Thor's hammer go by, and he doesn't know better. He thinks he can, because he's Quicksilver and he can do all of this, that it'll be fine when he grabs Thor's hammer. And he already doesn't know the consequences of grabbing Thor's hammer while it's in midair. And that has a nice outcome that he will quickly learn from. And a lot of people, I guess, are complaining because obviously Aaron Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen have to have accents. I'm under the impression that 90% of people that complain about accents in movies aren't exactly experts. They just hear accents in movies that aren't American and are under the impression that it must be bad. So, yeah, that is just not something that I thought about or care about. So, that did not take away from anything from me, but apparently a lot of people are bitching about it just because they need something to bitch about, and accents are the go-to when you just need something random to bitch about in a movie. And I thought, and once again, I had no idea that Andy Serkis was in this movie. No, it's only one scene, but still, because when he first appeared, like, my mind immediately said, Andy Serkis. But then the second I had to think about it, I was like, well, I never heard about Andy Serkis being in this, so that's clearly just somebody that looks like him. Moving on. And I just kind of accepted it as, that dude looks so much like Andy Serkis. Because the voice he's putting on is so not Andy Serkis' voice. Yeah, I know, Andy Serkis is like the new Gary Oldman. Nobody knows what the real one is. But, no, Andy Serkis has done a few movies as, normal. 13 Going on 30, for instance, with Ruffalo. I didn't think about that until just now. And Batman's wife. So, yes. There are a lot of, okay, I haven't talked about the action scenes yet. That's kind of important. Apart from the opening scene, obviously. The action scenes are fine here. There are a few that are, generally there's like a couple of gigantic set pieces and then the rest are just kind of, this action scene's happening because we need to get to this point. The big action scene, obviously, like, the big centerpiece action scene, obviously, is, the Hulkbuster. I had heard through my brother of the existence of the Hulkbuster a long time ago. The beauty of not seeing trailers or hearing anything. I had no idea the Hulkbuster was in this movie. No idea whatsoever. And once, like I said with 307, I went back and I watched all the trailers. Yep. It's all, the Hulkbuster's there in all its glory in the fucking teaser trailer. No idea going in that it was in there. And I thought that was a marvelous surprise to me. And that scene is so fucking wicked. You get to see the consequences of the Hulkbuster's fist and the Hulk's fist colliding. And it is magnificent. And I love that moment where, when obviously it's the Hulk under, Scarlet Witch has been fucking with his head, like she has been with all the others. So he's running rampant and he's out of control and nobody can stop him because Black Widow too is under the whatever the fuck. So it's up to Tony and this dude to stop him. The first time they try to stop him, they drop this like metal container on top of him, as if that's going to do something. Which it quickly does not, which obviously has to result in Tony's intervention, of course. So yeah, that's the really big standout scene. The ending battle is fine, There's there's a decent chase scene in the middle. That scene I was talking about earlier with Captain America and the truck that Ultron is in. Where it's funny that, of course, that Jeremy Renner's in this movie, and she's in Black Widow's character is like all buddy with him because I thought I had forgotten about this movie, but I clearly didn't because the chase with Black Widow on her motorcycle and the truck and all that was a lot like the really great chase scene in The Bourne Legacy, which is pretty much the only reason to watch The Bourne Legacy is that chase scene, which has Edward Norton, the other Hulk, in it. Everything is coming together. As so many people have played comic book characters now, everything connects. It's like looking at the American Hustle poster, and you have Batman, you have Rocket Raccoon, you have Lois Lane, you have Mystique, and you have Hawkeye. All in the same movie. Glorious. So yes, a lot... my goddamn mouth. So yes, the movie had a high bar set, obviously, that it had to reach. And while it doesn't compare, it doesn't reach the first one. That's kind of clear. But it still does a really good job. It does a really good job of needing what it needs to do. But it doesn't have I guess it just doesn't, because the first one was so fresh, I guess, and was this big monstrous thing that nobody had ever seen before. And it was just totally fucking mind-blowing to see all of the superheroes you saw built up in those movies in one gigantic movie with just one, a lot of foes, but just one in particular. And seeing it again it's still there because it does it in a new way, obviously. It's not one of those movies where it just kind of takes the exact formula of the first one and goes with it. The characters are still developing. We're still learning new things about them that we didn't know before. The acting is still as up to par as it is, which is surprisingly good for movies like this. People generally tend to just kind of dismiss that, and actors tend to dismiss it themselves when they're in movies like this. But yeah, everything is working fine, and it's nothing that, it's not. I don't. I'm not. I mean, it's not like best of the year material. It's not like something that I watch. It's not like watching when I saw the first movie in theaters and it was just like, yes. It's just it's very good though, and very very satisfying. The another problem is I didn't feel like it was as like witty in a comical sense as the first movie as well. I know I gotta differentiate the first Avengers movie. Like there's one joke where at the very beginning, in the very opening scene, Tony says shit, and then Captain America says watch your language, and from then on there's a running joke that Captain America said that, and that was kind of weak to be the running joke of the whole movie. But it's still in there. There's the great scene where everybody trying to lift Thor's hammer becomes a party game. That works really well and has. But as far as being like, there was a like a great witty back and forth throughout the first movie that this one's kind of lacking, and but still, these movies the Marvel movies tend to get a lot of flack for how much comedy they have in them, especially because fucking DC has to do their whole everything must be dark and realistic thing that everybody's like fixated on now. Where movies can't be fun now. If they try to be funny or they try to joke around, then they're just not worth your time, or they're below in the quality in some way. But the thing about these movies is they've always set themselves up that way. Like all the Avengers movies might as well have comedy as one of their genres, and that's just a part of it. That's just a part of the whole universe and how the tone of it. So you just need to get over that if that's one of your issues. So yes, that's pretty much what I have to say for 42 minutes about that. About 7 minutes of that was us building up to the actual review, but yeah, it's definitely worth seeing. It's not the level of the first one, but that was going to be hard to beat anyway. But still, it's not gonna disappoint people. Well, I'm sure it'll realistically disappoint some people, but it's not a bad movie, if you hear that. Okay, after all that, we still have 3 more movies to do. Great. Yeah. Our second movie is Ex Machina, which has been getting a lot of build-up lately because it's getting a shitload of good reviews and a massive, great response. Because it's one of those... Like, I feel like I say this almost every other week. We're in this era now where it's like the really low-key sci-fi movies that have a lot to say is kind of the new trend now. Where this isn't quite indie sci-fi, but it's kind of in the same vein as movies like that, where they're not big mainstream movies and they don't necessarily have the budget of them, but they still have the ambitious ideas and can take them in different directions and get people into a thought-provoking state. The setup of it, if you don't know, is we have Brendan Gleeson's son, whose first name I'm still not quite sure. I should really learn that because he's a really talented actor that's really breaking out, and yeah, just Brendan Gleeson's son forever. And he has been selected, apparently, as a prize of sorts, to be brought out to his boss's estate to take part in a Turing test, which we all saw. We all saw in The Imitation Game, so we know that is a test with AI to see if it can basically see if it can interact and behave like a human, to the point that it can be mistaken for a human. And it's a movie that's tone and atmosphere grabs you like immediately. Like this was one of those movies where you sit down and it starts immediately and you think, okay, this is probably going to be something. Let's pay attention for the next hour and 48 minutes very closely. And it does not. It is effortless to give this movie your attention. It really is. Because we have these big sweeping shots where we have this giant, magnificent island-like paradise that Oscar Isaac lives on. that just has one glass house like right in the middle of it. Where he's in the helicopter with the pilot, and he's actually saying, like, when did we get to his estate? And he's like, you've been on his estate for 2 hours. It's like, that's when you realize that Oscar Isaac's character is somebody hugely, hugely important and mysterious. And that's the thing, is there's a whole mystery looming over this movie immediately. And then we go in and we follow him. He's left there, and he has to walk the rest of the way. And then he finally gets into the house, and he goes all the way through, and it's this big, massive place that's totally empty. It seems totally abandoned, and there's one person there, and Oscar Isaac's outside. And we've built him up in this big, mysterious, multi-billionaire, genius, eccentric, any other way you can possibly put that. And Oscar Isaac turns around and sees that he's there, and the first thing he says is, "Dude, you're here!" And that is a very interesting way to approach this. It's worth noting, Oscar Isaac gives one of my favorite performances of the year, and so if not my favorite performance of the year so far. I know we're only at the end of April, but it's still, I've seen like 60 movies this year already, so that's quite a few performances. But everybody is great in this, but Oscar Isaac really, really stood out to me here. And he's he's one of those characters where the mystery that was already looming around this movie, and that kind of eerie atmosphere that's going on, because you don't quite know, much like the lead character, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into as you go further into this. And Isaac's character is kind of the personification of this uncertainty that the lead character is going through, because he can go one of the, like, he's extremely friendly and personable, but at the same time, it's almost in like a kind of intimidating way. Like he's trying to be really, really like brotherly. Like the very first thing he says to him when he meets him is "dude," but there's still something about him that Isaac is doing subtly, to where you're still really intimidated by him. The build-up probably helped, of course, and just the whole environment around him, I'm sure. But there's also the fact that there could be 1 minute where he's a really, really laid-back dude and just wants to sit back and drink. And then like the flip of a switch, he's suddenly like one of the most threatening people you've been face-to-face with. And it can just go back and forth at a moment's notice. And you have no idea if he's like this evil, genius, mad scientist type, or if he's just kind of a total and complete psychopath that gets drunk. There's the great moment with the Ghostbusters scene when Gleason realizes that he can't use the phone. He doesn't have cell service where he is, and he doesn't have access to use the phones in the house because Isaac doesn't want information leaking out or anything. And just his drunken line delivery of, "Who are you gonna call? Are you gonna call Ghostbusters?" You didn't see that movie where Dan Aykroyd gets oral sex from a ghost? Oh my god, Oscar Isaac. It's going to be great seeing you in a lot of movies lately. It's going to be great. 2 of which we talked about in the last review. And I should probably get to our breakthrough performance here, besides Gleason, obviously. Everybody's talking about the fact that Alicia Vikander is going to have a huge, huge year this year. Because she's got this performance to go on, which is getting everybody's attention, and she's got like 9 movies coming out, I think is what I read. One of which is The Danish Girl, which is the movie where Eddie Redmayne is playing a transgender painter, and it's directed by Tom Hooper. Yeah, I know. So she's probably going to get that Keira Knightley supporting actress spot for The Danish Girl by the beginning of next year. But anyway, here she presents something that is really going to get people's attention, because it's not a performance that people are going to be like, people are going to see it instantly and think, oh my god, this is going to be an all-time great performance or anything like that. I'm not saying it's all-time great, but it's getting a very positive reaction. This performance is, and I can tell you that it's really, really masterfully done, though, because there are a lot of ways you can play a robot. Let's go back about a year ago when I was talking about Transcendence, and I was trying my best to defend Johnny Depp, because Johnny Depp was playing AI in Transcendence, because his conscience was transferred to a computer, and Depp just kind of had to talk like, yeah. And people were complaining that Depp was very emotionless in that movie. And I defended it by saying that when you're playing AI, that's pretty much the thing, is to be just not really there. Be there, but not there at the same time. And you can very, very easily kind of laze your way through that, which is what a lot of people assume Depp did. And I was defending him back then, but in retrospect, yeah, I can see where they were coming from. That's not the way she does it, obviously. She wouldn't be getting acclaimed if she was. She has this, there's a whole lot of, I can throw around the word subtlety and nuance so many times, but there are things that she is doing here that really make it something else. Like, there are these, she has this way of doing, like, indecipherable facial expressions, and she has, like, an innocence about her, but the thing about, I don't know if it's just the tone of the whole movie around her, but it's almost ironic because obviously she's, you know, kind of, we're assuming, naive to what's going on around her, and she's basically new to the world because she's just been created by Oscar Isaac. So she has that innocence about her, but at the same time, it's that way so much so that she can be unsettling, almost. Like, she's so innocent, it almost makes you uncomfortable, and there's something just kind of subtly creepy about it that you can't quite put your finger on, and this is all being conveyed by her performance. It's a hard performance to really, you know, dissect and explain, because you just really have to see just kind of how she doesn't just go the route of being, you know, just monotone and I am clearly a robot, so I don't have to emote and I don't really have to do anything except say my lines in just one straight tone without really going any direction with it. The way she was able to actually make a real performance here and a character you could, like, really, really, you know, empathize for almost immediately, that takes talent. And that's really the best way I can think of to put it. The movie's really, really tense, too. Like, apparently a lot of people were just thinking it was going to be like some sci-fi movie where, like, people did science shit and then it ended. It's really a thriller. And there's also a lot of questions to be raised about, like, you know, I don't know what's spoiler territory here and what isn't. It's mostly, you could dismiss it as people overthinking. This might be a movie where a lot of people get accused of overthinking it, which could be a case, so, but there are other questions that this movie will raise to you, probably, that can leave you talking with other people about it and discussing, which is good. That's generally what movies, you know, strive to be, especially movies like this that are this ambitious. And I've seen the word important thrown around a lot with this movie too, which is interesting. Yes, there's a lot of, another thing about the tension of it and it basically being a thriller is it progressively gets more and more that way. Like, it's not one of those thrillers where it's like everything's calm and then there's a tense scene and then there's calm again and then something else tense happens. It's just one long string of tension that's kind of getting more and more, like, you know, whatever the term is. It's getting more and more tense as it goes until you finally reach the end and it's just, yes. So yes, it's the, apparently it's the, is it the directorial debut of Alex Garland, who wrote 28 Days Later and Sunshine? Yes. I knew that before I looked. That's so yeah. Okay. So yes, that's, I mean, I'm sure you've already been told to check it out or you've already been interested in checking it out. You don't need me to. So yeah. What are we doing next? I've lost what I was doing. We're doing adult beginners next. Okay. This... Okay. I still don't really know... I was thinking about... I don't really know how... I don't know about this movie. I don't know. Let me tell you about it, though. You've probably seen advertisements around for it now, because it's doing, like, VOD and, you know, Google, whatever, and I think it got, like, a small theater release. It's this movie with Nick Kroll. Nick Kroll is the star of it. Let me just tell you what happened here. Let me just be blunt with you. I'm under the impression that Nick Kroll and Bill Hader know each other. You know, they're both comedians. They've both done the roasts. I assume they've done a couple of those together. They probably crossed paths. And I'm sure they just know each other in real life in general. I don't know if Nick Kroll is associated with Saturday Night Live or not. I don't know much about him. But to my understanding, he was basically... This isn't like a fact or anything, but this is just me assuming. But after seeing the movie, I think it's a pretty safe assumption. Nick Kroll watched The Skeleton Twins. And he saw Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig, both, I should probably mention, being in this movie that was very, very, you know, heart-renderingly real, but also really funny, but also really dramatic, and just really made people feel something, and really, really got to a lot of people in a personal way, positively. And it was something they could really connect with. And it was also about, you know, trying to find your place and, you know, what you're doing, and there's a side plot about married life and how hard it is and how you need to maintain it and the problems that could come from it. So I'm guessing Nick Kroll saw The Skeleton Twins and said, Hader can do that, I can do that. And now this movie exists. And it's exactly... There are so many movies now, especially indie movies, about... It used to be... it still is to an extent, but it's kind of being overrun now. It used to be unbearable movies about 20-somethings that don't know what to do with their life, so they just kind of go around aimlessly and be wacky and quirky until they figure out what they're going to do. And the movie ends before they even figure out what the fuck they're going to do. Just to show you how, leave it up to your interpretation. Some bullshit. Fuck it. But now the trend seems to be it's 30-somethings. We went up a decade. Now it's 30-somethings that don't know what the fuck they're doing. Sooner or later we're going to have movies about people in nursing homes just saying, like, you know, what do I do until my death? I don't know what to do. And just talking hipster shit until they die. That's probably where we're headed with this. So, the movie is fucking called Adult Beginners. Yeah, that's real fucking clever. You know, this is... Okay, let me talk about this right now. This is what's confusing me. When I was watching this movie, I didn't hate it. Like, it's not terrible. It's not unbearable or anything. I didn't hate life while I was watching it. But talking about it is making me angry. So I don't really know how to take it. Because here's... Just listen to this, okay? Nick Kroll plays one of those guys that has a big company, and he's like really, really rich, and he's in charge of a lot of people's money, and he's a douchebag who can get any girl he wants, and he goes to a bunch of parties wearing suits, and he has sleazy friends, and he's like, yeah, I own the party, I'm like Steve Stifferly in a suit, that's how awesome I am, yeah, I'm just gonna take my champagne glass and be awesome and rich, and a douchebag, because that's just what I am. And, oh shit, the company's gone down and I've lost everything. Now I'm broke and now I have to go move in with my sister. And there's so much goddamn Skeleton Twins in this movie. Without the company collapse, obviously.
That's a little bit of Get Hard right there.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Film with Dick and James is the first movie that came to mind, actually. And then there's also, once he is in his sister's house, he has to take care of the kid. Because Bobby Cannavale's the father. He's always off doing God knows what. And she has a job and she's pregnant. So she's constantly doing something. Or is constantly occupied. So, it's, you know, I've always had to only take care of myself. And I only take care of myself. And, you know, I didn't have any... This is just... I'm a douchebag. I don't care about other people. And now I'm stuck with taking care of a kid. Oh, where could this possibly be going? And at that point, you might notice, if you saw this, if you were one of like 3 people, Happy Christmas with Melanie Lynskey and Anna Kendrick and whoever the third person was, Lena Dunham. That's what it is. When this movie's not being the Skeleton Twins, it's being Happy Christmas. These are the exact 2 movies in one. Like, there is no middle ground. There is no one little plot outline where the movie takes on a life of its own. It's either being the Skeleton Twins or it's being Happy Christmas. There is no middle ground where this movie is its own thing. Not one fucking scene. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like, you remember, there's even a side plot where we have to create drama. So... one of the married couple is having an affair. You know, like Kristen Wiig did in the Skeleton Twins. And you have the... It's also kind of funny that it's worth noting that in both of these movies, the most likable character... Not likable in Bobby Cannavale's sense, because he's kind of a douchebag, but the actor you like watching the most is the husband. Because Bill Hader was fantastic in the Skeleton Twins. Bill Hader was great. And Kristen Wiig was fine too. But the person that stood out to me in the Skeleton Twins was Luke Wilson. And Bobby Cannavale is basically playing that part, except he's the one that cheats instead of the wife. And that's just, you know, you have that appealing... Obviously you have the appeal that, it's always charming to see Rose Byrne and Bobby Cannavale work together because they're, you know, one of the great celebrity couples happening right now in real life. And Rose Byrne is like everybody's all over her right now. And it's because of Neighbors mainly. And yeah, she's charming to an extent, and I like her. I think people are blowing her a little out of proportion. Bobby Cannavale, on the other hand, I don't know how many times I've gotten a chance to mention some reviews. It's been a lot. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. He always brings something to his roles, even if the movie sucks. And like Annie, for instance. And so there's enough in there when the 2 of them are kind of on screen. But the issue here is, I don't know. I guess I was trying to think of a nice way to put it, but I don't really have one. I don't think Nick Kroll is appealing. I just the whole time, like, we're supposed to... Obviously, we get to that point to where he's got to soften up. Like, he's got to... You know, he finds the girlfriend, and he kind of has to be charming to win her over, and then he has to be, like, you know... Oh, the kid's doing this, and he's got to do this, and... Oh, no, he can't manage the kid, how wacky and quirky and shit. And then it's going to finally get to the point where he's obviously, right after the first day, he's like, well, I'm going to resign. I'm going to go move in with Joel McHale. I am not going to do anything else. I'm never doing this again. This is not my thing. I am too, you know, big businessman douchebag for this. I don't have to do this. But there's going to be that moment where, you know, he and the kid start to get along, and he's, you know, really happy with taking care of the kid, and there's an attachment, and they become all buddy-buddy, and he's running errands with her and the kid, and he's all happy about it, and he's becoming a new man. He's growing back into adulthood, and it's so nice to see him come back to a great person and do wonderful things and be happy and bouncy and all that bullshit. But who the fuck cares? Because I don't. No. Nothing about, no. This movie was not doing it for me. I was gonna, yes. I liked this movie a little better before I started talking about it, but now I don't. So, no. There are moments, we get Josh Charles in the last 15 minutes. He goes by in the credits, and I was like, oh, at least Josh Charles is in this. He comes in for the last 15 minutes, and he's the business guy that comes in. And, he's really devoted to his family now. He's a good person now, but, oh no, he's got a new big-paying job with Suits. He's got to go do that now. Oh, what heartbreak. He's got to move out of the house when we were getting such attached, and we were so happy now as a family. And he was becoming attached to the kid, and he liked babysitting, and he was becoming a new man. Well, now he's got to have the point to where Josh Charles actually says, okay, now, you're either going to... He gets the call that something's going on. There's a family emergency. He's got to leave the office. So Josh Charles has to confront him and say, there's two things you're going to do. You're either going to stay in this office and you're going to play ball, or you're going to go off with your family. And he puts the tone on the family, like, if you do that, you're a piece of shit and we're going to resent you. And he has to do I'm going to go with the family because that's the new man that I am. The business douchebag I was before, not anymore. That is totally an unexpected character trait. Bye. They did put one little twist on that was kind of funny, where Josh Charles said, this isn't Jerry Maguire, I'm not going to fire you, I just don't want you to walk out of the office. That was kind of funny, but it was so brief, and we only get like 10 minutes of Josh Charles. That's not enough Josh Charles, goddammit. And we also have another interesting, a nice little appearance. I wouldn't say cameo, but it's an appearance. Jane Krakowski has some funny moments as they go to like a little swim class for their toddlers that she teaches, and obviously Jane Krakowski is wonderful and a comedic genius, so those tiny little scenes work. But that's it. There's a funny scene towards the end where Bobby Cannavale jumps in the pool, and she's talking about how you're not involved with this class. You've never been to this class before. And he's like, I always come to this class. I'm going to stay in this class forever. I thought that was just a funny delivery. But that's all the movie's got to offer. The two lines I just said that I thought were kind of funny are in the last 10 minutes of the movie. Maybe not even now. Maybe the last 5 minutes. The 5 to 10 minute range. The ending there. That's where those two lines come in where I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny. That's not good. And lastly, just in an attempt to be different, I'm just beating the shit out of the movie now while it's down, but just one more thing pissed me off when the movie ended. I don't know if they thought they were being unique or what the shit, but they did something with the credits I'd never seen before, which was weird. You know how in a traditional credit roll, you have the character name and then the actor name over here, and it just rolls like that? It was just the name of the actors. Like, it was the same format with 2 columns, but there were no character names. It was just one column of actors and then another column of actors, and it just rolled. I don't know what that was for. Is the point I'm making with that observation. Alright. Our last movie. Okay. I was worried about our last movie. Our last movie is While We're Young. Which is Noah Baumbach's new movie. If you've been watching these reviews, you know why I was initially worried about this movie. Noah Baumbach has had an interesting filmography. His debut was a movie called Kicking and Screaming with Eric Stoltz. That was decent. That was fine. For a debut, it was pretty good. I think it was his debut. Then he did The Squid and the Whale. One of my all-time favorites. I just did that review. And got to gush about it, and that made me happy. Then he did Margot at the Wedding, which is great. I love Margot at the Wedding. Not just because my favorite actress is the star of it. I love Margot at the Wedding for other merits as well. All its other merits. Greenberg was fine. I thought Greenberg kind of got a bit of a beating it didn't really need. I could see where people would think it was unbearable, but I didn't think so. Was there anything between Greenberg and that, or was that the next one? Let's just jump straight to it. The reason I was worried, of course, with Noah Baumbach's last movie was Frances Ha. Yay. So, dismissing that, he reunited with Ben Stiller, and Greta Gerwig is not here, so we were on the right track. And it is it's a really basic story. Ben Stiller and Naomi Watts are a married couple who are they can't have children, and they're they're fucking stranded. They don't know what to do with their lives. They're just a couple, just kind of going through life trying to figure out what to do. And then they meet Adam Driver and Amanda Seyfried at one of his classes. And they decide that it turns out he's a big fan of Ben Stiller's work. Stiller is a documentarian. And they decide that they're going to hang out. And then they basically become best friends. And there's kind of the interesting aspect of the story is they're total and complete opposites. Not only are they an older couple and a younger couple, but the things that they do are kind of reversed, because like Ben Stiller's all about Facebook and phones and all the new technology and all the trendy shit that's going on, and Adam Driver and Amanda Seyfried are more of everything is classic. Like they listen to music on records and they play board games and they watch VHSs, which I can relate to. I just watched a VHS the other day, actually, and it's fantastic. My VCR is still working wonderfully. I do not own a Blu-ray player. So now, now that I got that out of the way, I'm so sorry I went hipster on you there for a second. It'll never happen again. The interesting thing about this is the point in the movie where I realized that this movie should probably be annoyingly quirky. This movie should be really, really fucking grating. But it's not. Something about it works, and I think a lot of that has to do with the actors involved. The four actors that I mentioned all have talent to a degree, and I don't think I can express enough how much I love Adam Driver. When I first saw him on Girls, I was like, who is this fucking tool? But once again, it's because his character on Girls reminds me of somebody that I hate in real life. That's a complete and total scumbag that'll fuck anything. And he's exactly like that character. But then that character actually grew in the show. I only watched the second season, but that character grew. And then the movies he's been in, it's just like he gets better and better and more entertaining. He was in Inside Llewyn Davis for, 5 minutes? And that character is in my head forever. And I love that he's getting a lot of work, and I love that people are really, really taken to him. It's great. He's really growing on me like no actor has for a long time. Like, anytime he's in a movie, I'm, like, ready to be there. Even if the movie looks like it's gonna suck ass, he's gonna bring something to it. And, of course, Stiller's played this part before, but still works. Naomi Watts is really good in this, too. I know it shouldn't be a surprise that Naomi Watts is good, but just thought I'd mention that. Amanda Seyfried is fine. She's not an actress that has always jumped out at me, but you know she's got credibility. The movie's not great, but she's really great in Lovelace. So she needs. I think her problem is the parts that she gets. She hasn't been able to really show off her skills that much. That might be her only issue. But there's the movie's surprisingly funny. Like it's like there are moments there where it's like this is probably it's a little too much into the quirky, but no, there's plenty of scenes that are legitimately funny. While also maintaining the story. I find it really interesting if you're not a fan of most of what Baumbach stuff is, which is just kind of people sorting out their mundane lives. This movie actually has a story to it after a while. Like about halfway through, this movie actually becomes like a movie, like a story out of a movie. And it doesn't completely pay off, but it's interesting to see Baumbach actually take that approach, and actually have kind of a narrative going on. If all else fails, Charles Grodin is in this movie, who is just one of the greatest things to ever happen to the human race. Did a lot of really shitty comedies in the 80s, but still always a welcome presence in movies. Stuff like Neil Simon type stuff is what he was really great with. So this kind of movie is just the kind of thing you'd expect him to pop up in, and it's really great. Because he was gone for a long time there. He was gone for like a little over a decade there. And now he kind of like slowly started coming back into movies. I wrote a couple of things here that I don't remember why I wrote them. that's going down again. There is one scene in this movie I found a little unpleasant. Where they have this little rich... Now, mind you, I was expecting it because I knew what it was and what direction it was going because of the movie Sound of My Voice with Brett Marling. where they have the ritual where you go and you vomit your demons out, only you're vomiting literally. But luckily I was able to avoid this because I saw Sound of My Voice, which they basically did the same ritual there. This was actually a breath of fresh air compared to Sound of My Voice, because in While We're Young they have the buckets. In Sound of My Voice, it's just a big plastic sheet on the floor. And you can imagine. So yes, that was one unpleasant scene, but I was able to get past it. If you know why I'm complaining if you've seen other videos. So yes, this is the only issue with this movie is how forgettable it is, because it's funny and the actors are really good and it's enjoyable to watch, but it wasn't long after we got out of it I was already forgetting it. And it might be because we just went straight to Ex Machina. That might be that might have been a reason, but no, it's perfectly fine while you're watching it, but it's not gonna stay in your head really. As you can see, I'm struggling to remember it, but yeah, if you're gonna, it's worth seeing, you know. And David Bowie's Golden Years is the end credit song. It's really nice to see that song used in a movie that's not A Knight's Tale. Yes, that's what we have here. I think we're about done here, finally.
So, we're going to end another edition of AJ's Movie Reviews. But before we do, we actually have to go into the star amounts real quick. Avengers 2.
3.
Ex Machina.
3.
Adult Beginners.
Well, it was going to be 2, but it's 1.5 now.
While We're Young.
2.5.
Alright, next week is Hot Pursuit and a bunch of limited releases as well. Because that's literally all we have next week. It's kind of our bye week before we go back to busy movies again.
Mm.
So we are officially 2 years as a YouTube channel on Friday, so tomorrow. The only thing I can say we're doing special is, I guess, wrestling content's going to be your videos on that day. So, and I'll probably do some sort of a vlog. I haven't decided yet. Versus will still be on Sunday. Ashley's Gaming with Ash returns on Saturday. And more wrestling content at the start of the week. Our Popcast will continue. We're going to be doing Raw every week with Ashley, and I'll probably be joining the End of the Loop guys very soon. And once I do, I will let you guys know on my Twitter. So that being said, thank you guys and girls out there for watching. By all means, go watch these movies this weekend, seriously. If you have a way to see Ex Machina, see it. If you haven't seen it yet, and the Avengers does deserve your money. And it's not just to boost it up to billion-dollar range in like days. It's just, it does deserve your money.
Avoid Adult Beginners, though.
Yeah. And While We're Young is good if you get a chance to check it out if you like that type of stuff. And I had to sit here silently while he bagged on my girl, but I understand why you're not a fan of Greta, but...
It's probably... While We're Young might be hard to find now, because it's been out for like a month. But,
it should be out on DVD soon. And
it's still floating around art house theaters. That's how we saw it.
I have a feeling it'll be on video on demand soon, because it seems like a type of movie that's going to go quickly. But we'll see. So, that being said, thank you guys and girls out there for watching, and thank you for supporting Pop for the last 2 years, and continue to do so by liking our Facebook fan page, Suro and Disney Pop, and that's pretty much the end of that. So, AJ, any parting words?
That's it.